In the heart of Chicago, where the wind carves through the skyscrapers and the streets hum with the rhythm of urban life, there existed an apartment building that bore the weight of unspoken stories. It was in this building, nestled among the shadows of the bustling city, that a tale of fear and suspense began to unfold, a tale that was all too real. The protagonist of our story was a young woman named Ava, a recent transplant to the city with dreams of starting anew. She had found a place in the old apartment building, drawn by its affordable rent and central location. The building had a certain charm, with its Art Deco facade and vintage elevator that groaned with each ascent. Ava's life in Chicago was a solitary one. She worked from home as a freelance graphic designer, her only companions, the glow of her computer screen and the occasional buzz of her phone. The city offered anonymity, a place where one could disappear into the crowd. Yet Ava found herself longing for a connection that seemed just out of reach. As autumn approached, the days grew shorter and the nights longer. Ava noticed a change in the atmosphere of the building. The hallways, once filled with the sounds of life, became eerily silent. The other residents, whom she rarely saw, seemed to vanish as soon as the sun set. One night, as Ava lay in bed, she heard a sound that sent a chill down her spine, a faint scratching coming from the wall behind her headboard. At first, she dismissed it as the building settling, but the scratching persisted, growing louder and more frantic with each passing night. Determined to find the source, Ava questioned her neighbors, but they shrugged off her concerns, their eyes darting away as if hiding some unspoken truth. The building's superintendent was equally dismissive, assuring her that it was probably just rats in the walls. But Ava couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The scratching seemed too deliberate, too intentional to be the work of rodents. It was as if something, or someone, was trying to communicate with her. One evening, as the scratching reached a fever pitch, Ava mustered the courage to investigate. She pressed her ear against the wall, listening intently. That's when she heard it. A whisper so soft it was almost inaudible, repeating a single word: help. Panic surged through Ava's body. She stepped back from the wall, her mind racing with possibilities. Was someone trapped within the building's structure? Or was her imagination getting the better of her? Ava contacted the police, but without evidence of a crime, there was little they could do. She turned to the building's history, scouring the internet for any clues. What she found was a chilling revelation. The apartment building had been the site of a tragic accident decades earlier, where a construction worker had been sealed within the walls, his pleas for help unheard. The discovery consumed Ava. She became obsessed with the idea that the worker's spirit was reaching out to her, trapped in a liminal space between life and death. The scratching became a nightly occurrence, a haunting reminder of the building's dark past. Determined to find answers, Ava embarked on a quest to uncover the truth. She delved into the city's archives, piecing together the story of the worker and the fateful day of the accident. She learned of his family, of the grief that had followed his disappearance, and of the rumors that had swirled around the building ever since. As Ava dug deeper, she realized that the scratching was not an isolated incident. Other residents had heard it too, though they were reluctant to speak of it. It was as if the building itself was alive, its walls echoing with the pain of the past. The story reached its climax on a stormy night, when the power in the building flickered and went out. In the darkness, the scratching intensified, surrounding Ava as she huddled in her apartment. It was then that she made a decision that would change her life forever. Ava tore down the wall, revealing a hollow space within. There, amidst the dust and debris, lay the remnants of the worker's existence: a rusted lunchbox, a faded photograph, and a note scrawled in desperation. The note spoke of loneliness and fear, of the terror of being forgotten. It was a plea for remembrance, for someone to know that he had lived, that he had mattered. Ava brought the worker's story to light, ensuring that his memory would not be lost to the annals of history. The scratching ceased, and the building seemed to sigh with relief, its secret finally revealed. In the vibrant city of San Francisco, where the fog rolls in like a living entity and the Golden Gate Bridge stands as a beacon of engineering marvel, there was an unassuming neighborhood that harbored a secret. This secret was known only to a few, and it was these few who carried the burden of fear that came with it. The central figure of our story is a man named Tom, a detective with the San Francisco Police Department. Tom was no stranger to the dark underbelly of the city, having spent years navigating its complex web of crime and justice. But nothing could have prepared him for the case that landed on his desk one crisp autumn morning. It began with a series of disappearances, each one as mysterious as the last. The victims were seemingly plucked from the streets, leaving behind no trace, no clue as to their whereabouts. The city was on edge, whispers of a predator lurking in the shadows, spreading like wildfire. Tom's investigation led him to a quaint neighborhood on the outskirts of the city, a place where the houses huddled together, their windows like watchful eyes. It was here that he met an old woman named Mrs. Winters, a longtime resident who spoke of a chilling legend that had haunted the neighborhood for generations. According to Mrs. Winters, there was an abandoned house at the end of the street, a place that the locals avoided at all costs. It was said that the house was cursed, that those who dared to enter were never seen again. Tom was skeptical, his mind trained to seek logical explanations, but the fear in Mrs. Winters' eyes gave him pause. Driven by a sense of duty and a growing curiosity, Tom decided to explore the abandoned house. As he approached, the air grew colder, the silence more profound. The house stood like a tombstone, its windows boarded up, its door ajar. Inside, the house was a labyrinth of dust and decay. Tom's footsteps echoed through the halls, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. He could feel the weight of the house's history pressing down on him, the stories of sorrow and loss etched into its walls. As Tom delved deeper into the house, he stumbled upon a room that was unlike the others. It was immaculately preserved, as if frozen in time. In the center of the room was a table, and on the table, a series of photographs. The photographs were of the missing people, their faces captured in moments of joy and laughter. But there was something else, a shadow that seemed to loom over each image, a presence that was felt, but not seen. Tom's heart raced as he realized that he was not alone. There was a whisper in the air, a voice that seemed to come from the very walls of the house. "Leave," it said, a command more than a request. Panic set in, and Tom ran, the house seeming to come alive around him. Doors slammed shut. The sound of footsteps followed him, and the whisper grew into a cacophony of voices, all repeating the same word: leave. Tom burst out of the house, the night air a welcome relief. He looked back once, the house now silent, its secrets locked away once more. The case remained unsolved, the disappearances a mystery that would linger in the minds of the city's residents. But for Tom, the experience had left an indelible mark. He had come face to face with fear, with the unknown, and it had changed him. In the bustling heart of Cairo, where the cacophony of daily life never ceased, there was one place that stood in stark contrast to the surrounding clamor, a dilapidated apartment building on the outskirts of the city. It was in this building that Layla, a young journalist with a penchant for uncovering hidden stories, found herself on a mission to explore urban solitude and the fear of being alone at night. Layla had always been fascinated by the stories of the city, the untold narratives that unfolded in the quiet corners and abandoned spaces. Her latest assignment was to document the experiences of those who lived in isolation, particularly during the night when the world seemed to shrink away into darkness. The apartment building, once a vibrant hub of families and laughter, now housed only a handful of residents, each with their own reasons for clinging to the remnants of what used to be. Layla moved in temporarily, armed with her recorder and an open heart, ready to listen and learn. As the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, Layla began her exploration. The hallways were dimly lit, the flickering lights casting long shadows that seemed to dance upon the walls. The silence was punctuated only by the occasional creak of a door or the distant sound of traffic. Layla knocked on doors, introducing herself to the residents, and found that each person had a unique relationship with the night. There was Mr. Hassan, an elderly man whose children had long moved away, leaving him in the company of his memories. There was Amira, a single mother who worked night shifts and treasured the quiet hours as a rare moment of peace. But it was on the top floor, in a small apartment filled with books and the aroma of spiced tea, that Layla met Amina. Amina was a widow who had lived in the building for decades, and she spoke of the nights with a mix of reverence and apprehension. "The night is a canvas," Amina said, her voice a soft melody in the stillness. "It can be filled with stars or shrouded in darkness, but it is always alive, always whispering stories to those who listen." Layla spent the night in Amina's apartment, recording her tales of the past, of love and loss, of fear and courage. As the hours passed, Layla realized that the fear of being alone wasn't about the absence of people. It was about the absence of connection. The story that Layla wrote wasn't about ghosts or haunted mansions. It was about the human spirit, about the strength found in the quiet moments of solitude. It was about the bonds that tie us together, even when we are apart. Her article, titled "Whispers in the Night: The Solitude of Cairo's Forgotten Building," was published to critical acclaim. It brought attention to the residents of the building, to their stories and their lives. And for Layla, it was a reminder that sometimes the most profound fears are the ones that we face within ourselves, in the silence of our own hearts.